Beyond the sunset. Fierce desert winds roared past the sturdy exterior of Pearl's company car. At times, the wind sounded like distant wails from some unknown entity, especially when it found its way through the tiny slots in the windows. Thankfully, no grains of sand from the surrounding dunes were able to pass through. They were tall, untouched as far as she knew, reflecting the heat and radiance of the sun. The white light reminded Pearl of the flash from an off-the-hook photo shoot. Inside the vehicle was quite comfortable, with all the bells and whistles you would expect an heiress to have installed. There was a modern wood table in the center, carved to look like an old record, 2 additional lounge chairs on either side, a mini fridge, and a flat-screen TV affixed to the fuchsia-colored walls. Marina sat next to Pearl with her face pressed to the glass, taking in the sights of the desert environment with wonder. Mountain peaks were visible in the distance, under thin lines of clouds. Despite golden sand stretching out infinitely, as far as the eye could see for miles, which bored Pearl after a few minutes, the Octoling beside her was quite fascinated by it all. They were dressed in their casual clothing, this time dyed in a rich black, headphones and crown accessories tucked away in suitcases. Marina watched as the largest and only tumbleweed she'd ever seen rolled out of view, turning back to face Pearl with a starry-eyed look.
I've only ever seen things like these in books. This is a whole new frontier for us, Pearly. To think that others have probably been out here for ages. It's all so exciting, isn't it?
Pearl gave Marina a soft expression, a half smirk, one that was only reserved for her girl.
I guess. I mean, I'm surprised you're this fired up with the scenery barely changing, babe.
Even if it doesn't seem too inviting, it's still really beautiful,
Marina replied as she reached for her sketchbook she'd placed on the seat next to her, continuing to create lines across the paper. Pearl shifted her balance to observe the images spread about the canvas, recognizing several types of cacti in one corner. She let out a small and she saw chibis of herself and Marina tucked into a makeshift sled, fabric and wood, sliding down the incline of a sand dune.
Hey, that looks like it'd be fun. You think it works the same as snow, though?
I imagine it does. Sand would be a pain to get out of clothes since it doesn't melt,
Marina hummed as she tapped her pencil against her chin. She smiled towards Pearl, returning her focus beyond the window again. The rebellious Inkling pressed her cheek against the vehicle's seat cushion, slightly unenthused, eyes tired from scrolling through her social media feeds for the last half hour. She remembered a pleasant moment from this afternoon after they first set out on this trip, where she'd rested her head in Marina's lap and drifted off to sleep. It was comfy for a while, but her girlfriend awakened her by stating that she needed to take pictures for art references. Off the Hook's overall image was going to change soon. Pearl rejected the idea of standing around in Inkopolis when it did happen. When the first new idea for a single or EP burst into her mind, she yearned to leave the city behind in search of new sights. So one evening, Marina mentioned a blog article she'd found detailing a mysterious city in the desert, complete with blurry, out-of-focus photos. It was like a sign from the heavens. This so-called City of Chaos, Splatsville, was on the rise after Final Fest, so it didn't take long to track down merchants who knew of its location, via sources that remain undisclosed. The whirlwind of events last year that had brought the duo even closer were truly unforgettable. From celebrating a 48-hour New Year's Frosty Fest, to all the other silly themes in between, being nominated for music awards, ending on the biggest Splatfest event that further launched their careers like the Squid Sisters had experienced. There was so much to unpack. So they did, a little bit at a time, exploring what their relationship meant to them and how they both navigate the pop star life safely. What a journey it had been, and one that felt like it was just getting started. Perhaps that's because it was, in Pearl's own words. They were gonna rock the mic together until the end of time. Pearl's eyes fluttered closed as she imagined Marina leaning forward on her motorcycle, racing across the barren land around them, her tentacles flowing through the air, mahogany skin gleaming underneath the solar rays. Her eyes were covered by clear goggles, with a determined look on her features.
What a cool scene,
she thought, finding herself lost in that vision, which of course was way more appealing than watching another video of the Judds doing something random in the square.
You're having a mirage already?
No, what makes you even say that?
Marina teased as Pearl's eyes shot open, her face flushing slightly.
Well, you had this huge goofy grin on your face, and I have no idea why.
I'm not spilling, so don't even try to.
Before Pearl could finish her sentence, Marina shut her sketchbook and closed the distance between them.
Don't even try to do what?
Her rose-colored irises stared down at Pearl with such curious intensity. The Yukimura began to blink very deliberately, causing Pearl to sigh and rest her palm against her forehead.
Don't give me that look, Marina. I was thinking that you look really cool on your bike out there.
Works every time.
Marina thought to herself.
I wasn't expecting that. It would be kind of thrilling. This is a safer way to travel, though. I can't argue with it.
Despite being a bit flustered, Pearl felt a wave of affectionate energy rise within her, deciding to rest her head upon Marina's shoulder, now that she wasn't focused on drawing. She spoke in a low voice.
For the most part, but it's also kind of dry. No pun intended. I'd put on a movie if I could decide on one.
Marina stretched an arm around her partner's shoulder and replied,
But then you might miss something happening outside.
Nah. I'll just ask the driver to let us know when the first sign of a steel tower comes into view. Boom. There you go.
Yes, I can't argue with that either. What do you think this city is going to be like? Rumors have been floating around that it's a new site for turf wars. After the Splatocalypse ended too.
Trends just don't stop moving, do they? It's still a small town, they gotta have some good eats. Advice from my folks.
Well, without a doubt, my body is ready.
I'll be sure to take plenty of pictures.
Yeah, that's a good idea, since we couldn't bring 8 with us this time. She's been so busy with her new job.
Oh yeah, ammo nights, wasn't it? That Sheldon better not be working our gal too hard, or he'll have a storm coming.
I'm sure she'll let us know if anything goes wrong, Pearly. Actually, you didn't mention how long we'd be in Splatsville for.
I don't know, I want to figure it out when we get there. And that's why we packed for a week, just in case.
I knew it. Sounds like an unpredictable amount of fun.
Wouldn't be without you, though.
I feel the same way, but you already know it.
Pearl and Marina shared a relaxed conversation like that for the remainder of the drive, chatting about anything that came to mind. The girls had lost track of time, hanging off of each other's every word as if it was a vow, barely noticing the attendant knocking at the other side of the car's divider. The two had since moved to the table, Pearl with her head down, so Marina looked up first, then poked her partner's elbow across from her, waiting for movement.
Hey, what's going on? Go ahead and turn on the comms.
Pearl said from between her folded arms, sounding a bit drowsy.
Huh?
Marina stood up and ran to her window. A voice was heard from the driver's cabin.
Miss Pearl, we have visuals. I believe we are approaching Splatsville now.
This statement caused Pearl to spring out of her chair, grab her phone to check for the time, and make note of the low signal, then dart over to where Marina was.
Can you see anything, Marina?
She shook her head quietly.
Nope, not yet. It's probably only visible from the dashboard.
Pearl turned and shouted for the dashcam feed to be sent to the TV in the passengers area. As the screen flickered on, a mass of gray buildings had just come into view above the sand, increasing in size. Earth's sun glowed a bright reddish orange this time of day, painting the sky with its hues, which materialized as a marvelous backdrop for the city ahead of them. Its energy could be felt just from glancing at its image, and as much as Marina wanted to open the sunroof and see the walls surrounding them as they arrived, she knew that it would be far too dangerous without eye protection from the airborne sand.
This is it, huh?
Marina whispered, almost to herself. She glanced at Pearl, and their eyes met. That was all the response she needed, to see that fire glimmering within them, ready for adventure.